So our first maneuver is trot over the logs in a serpentine. So I use that as maneuver 1. My abbreviation you'll see is TSO, trot serpentine over the poles. Maneuver 2, we have another serpentine, but it's through cones this time. And so you'll see I wrote extended trot serpentine. So there you're just going to want to be looking for a little bit of the extension in the stride. Okay, in maneuver 3, we're going to extended trot up to the rail, stop, grab a slicker, and move that around your horse. You're going to be giving credit for those horses that remain calmer and maybe during a more dramatic movement of the slicker. And from there, we'll move on to obstacle number 4, which is a fairly simple 3-log left lead lope over. Keep in mind the first 2 logs are designed to be one stride in between those logs, and then you have a standalone lope over log where you can choose your stride between the first 2 and the last one. Okay, obstacle number 5 is maybe the most complicated. So we come up at a lope to the gate. They should position themselves for a left-hand gate, and then they will back through the L. So obstacle 5 together is both the left-hand gate and the back through the L. And then I know it's written a little bit differently in the pattern, but on obstacle 6 it made more sense in my mind to group the trot out of the L and the walking over of the bridge and the logs. So for obstacle 6, I abbreviate it trot and walk over because I am judging those 2 together. So let's get on to ride number 1. Okay, so immediately this bay steps off into a 2-beat trot, definitely losing cadence over each of the poles, -1/2. We approach this next serpentine with some extension, maybe a little displeased in the expression. I kept that as 0. Stop was responsive, reactive, in the right area. I thought the rider did a really good job of testing the horse's brokenness in terms of really maneuvering that slicker over the entire body. So I went ahead and gave that a +1/2. We step off into the left lead lope correctly. And while we do hit that one stride on those first 2, we reach a little for the standalone pole. I'm a -1/2 there. Good stop up to the gate. She takes a minute to get settled, which I think is smart. Maneuvers well up to the gate to put her in a good position to lift the rope. Definitely not fluid through here, definitely taking a little more time than you would want to get to each aspect of the left-hand gate. Closes it. Definitely being pretty methodical, but maybe at the expense of quickness and finesse through this obstacle. And we're backing through the L, not incurring any penalties, no ticks or hits, but definitely slow, definitely disjointed. That would be a -1/2 maneuver for me, considering both the gate and the back through together, just because of the sheer time that it took. And then, hopefully everyone caught that, we have a line of travel violation. So she was supposed to go around the front of the first cone in the serpentine, and she went through it. So that will be a penalty score of 0. So for run number 1 on the bay in the trail, we have a penalty score of 0. Okay, we see here this horse pick up the jog. Hitting every log in stride, maintaining cadence. I gave him a 0 there. Definitely not the same story on the second serpentine, especially after the last cone loses his cadence, -1/2. I definitely thought the rider could have gone for challenging her horse just a bit more there on the slicker. I gave her a 0 nonetheless. Obstacle 4, we have the lope overs. Picks up the correct lead, definitely reaches to make those strides. A little resistant in the bridle. Well, very resistant in the bridle for a -1. Navigates the left-hand gate quickly and efficiently. It's here when the rider starts to ask for the back that we definitely get some anticipation from the horse. We get some antsiness. Lack of control is pretty evident here in the back. And if it weren't for such an efficient gate, I would have gone -1, but I averaged a 2 for -1/2. We're jogging now to the bridge, which we do so fine, correct? Walk over the bridge, and we put one foot in that step, and then we miss it with the hind legs for a penalty 1 for missing a space designated for 1 foot, and a -1/2 for the 6th obstacle. Overall, we have a penalty count of 1 and a end score of 66.5. Starting off here with horse 3. Not super cadenced in the first serpentine. I left it a 0. The resistance in the face gets to be a little too much to be ignored in the second serpentine for a -1/2. I thought this here with the slicker was average. Rider didn't challenge the horse too much, even though he stayed still, for a 0. 4th obstacle now, the lope overs. Maintains his pace even if it's a little forward without hitting anything or splitting anything. I left it a 0. We move now to the 5th obstacle. Left-hand gate and back through the L. I thought in terms of efficiency and willingness, this horse probably navigated this obstacle the best of the class. We see a pretty efficient closing of the gate. And pretty mindful of where his feet are in this back through while still being pretty quick about it. So +1/2 there. And then we move on to the final obstacle. The trot over to the bridge I think is average. Walk over the bridge is fine. When walking over those poles is where we see some problems with 2 penalty 1s for skipping a designated one stride space with a -1/2 maneuver. So I have 2 total penalty points for horse 3 with a final score of 67.5. So we start off at a good 2-beat pace, maybe getting a little resistant, a little extra handling. Nevertheless, I left it at the 0. In this second serpentine, I feel like the handling got to be a bit much for a -1/2. A little resistant on the stop there on the approach to the slicker. But nevertheless, stands really well as the rider really challenges her, being loud with the slicker. Now in this next maneuver on the lope overs, you'll see 5 penalty 1s. On the first pole, you have a split with a hind leg and a hit. On the second pole, you have a split with a hind leg. And on the third pole, you have a split with a hind leg and a hit for 5 penalty 1s, -1.5 maneuver. In addition, the stop here is a little drastic in terms of resistance. So I felt comfortable with a -1.5. Now moving our minds to obstacle 5, the left-hand gate in the back. We're still getting some resistance here by the horse. Getting it done, maybe a little quicker than some others, but we can't ignore the resistance. And as we finish the back, penalty free on this obstacle, but resistant enough. I think he earned a -1/2 there. And we trot up to the bridge. Decent. And then we miss 2 slots meant for 1 foot there on the walkover. So you penalty 1 with a -1/2 maneuver. Altogether, this horse incurred 7 penalty points. And ended up at a score of 60.5 on my card.